Today, we're going to be talking about tech bonus plans that drive service excellence. As I said a minute ago, my name is Jimmy Puckett. I own an MSP in Georgia. We have roughly about 30 people. We started in '97, mostly doing websites. We did our first managed services client in '07, where we charged $20 a server and $5 a PC per month. Times have changed. Anyhow, with that being said, a couple years after that, we met Dave Wilkerson, who I'll be introducing in a minute, that will be doing the speaking today. And he has really helped us transition our bonus plan. At the time we met Dave, we had a pretty simple one-dimensional plan. And over the last several years, with his help, we have really transitioned it to being a multidimensional plan that we use today. So with that being said, I want to turn it over to Dave, Dave Wilkerson with MSP Advisors.
So my name is Dave Wilkerson, as Jimmy mentioned. My background, I was kind of a serial tech entrepreneur. I had a VAR, and then I had an ISP. And then in 2005, I bought into a small VAR, 12 employees at the time. And as operations director, I built that to almost 20 million in sales. And we had 85 employees when I sold to my partners in 2013. At that point, I've been doing since then consulting. I work with MSPs all over the country of all different sizes. I also have a few in Canada and one in the UK as well. And one of the things that I do, one of the kind of tools in my toolbox is these bonus plans. So I've been doing that for a while. One of the things that we have in our business, we all have in our business, are what I call efficiency drags. So these are the things that are kind of keeping us from maximizing the labor, the labor time that we have in our engineers. And probably the biggest one is the idea of employees spending too much time on the wrong activities. And by that I mean, typically our employees are always busy all day long. They're busy. They go home. They're worn out. But a lot of times they're working on the things that maybe aren't the most critical things. So, for example, maybe they're a billable resource, but they're spending a lot of time on internal projects that maybe you haven't directed them to work on. Maybe on the help desk, they're spending a lot of time on documentation and ignoring the fact that there's tickets sitting out there. So not necessarily bad things, but potentially the wrong things at the wrong times. Not following established processes is another common efficiency drag. Hopefully we've all spent a lot of energy and time building processes to do things efficiently. So things like filling out tickets, deploying a new PC, deploying a server, all of those things. Hopefully we have some established processes. We need our technicians to kind of follow those processes and not skip pieces of them. And another biggie is unfinished projects and tickets. So, it seems like technicians are really good at getting things to 95%. It's that last 5% that kills us. Maybe that's just documentation. Maybe that's doing some checks and making sure that everything is completed. But those unfinished projects cause us to come back around and retouch equipment, retouch projects, clean things up, and it takes a lot longer to do it that way than just do it in the first place. So we're going to talk about how a bonus plan can really address those things. So the first thing is we need to reinforce our desired behavior. So we just talked about the things that cause us to drag behind. We need to reinforce those behaviors that we want. And then we need to translate those behaviors into performance metrics, things that we can measure, things that we can show our employees up on a screen or whatever in BrightGauge to show them that those behaviors are being done, and then translate those metrics into bonus dollars. So that's kind of the carrot here in all this. And finally, and this is kind of a critical piece, we need to align, we need to look at how to align all of the interests of these three groups, so the employees, the company, and the client. A good, well-designed bonus plan will align everyone's interests and make sure that everybody is on the same page about what the most critical things that are needed by that employee on a day-in, day-out basis to make sure those things are done. And we want to see all of those things balanced and aligned so that we're all focused on exactly the same thing. We want happy clients, the company making the best profit, and the employee benefiting from that profit as well. So a lot of people have what I call an old school bonus program. Maybe you don't have a bonus program at all, but if you do, it's typically has the hallmarks of one of these kind of old school bonus programs. A lot of people have attendance rewards. So you show up for work, you show up on time, you leave when you're supposed to leave or after, and you get some amount of money. It's typically a fixed dollar amount, so it might be $100 or $50 or $1,000 a year, whatever that number is, but it's a fixed dollar amount. And it's typically small. And the problem with small is, of course, that it's easily missed in a check. So, you know, by the time you take taxes out of $100, it really doesn't amount to all that much anymore. And it's typically not performance-based, so it's got some metric or whatever that's not focused on the performance of that employee on doing the things that we need them to be doing on a day-in, day-out basis, as we mentioned earlier. So what's an aligned bonus program? It's always going to be performance metric-based. So we're going to look at what those metrics are for that particular employee and base the bonus program on those performance metrics exclusively. It's going to be virtually unlimited, and by unlimited, I mean it's going to be based on the revenue. So whatever revenue that they're responsible for, so if they're time and materials professional services employees, it's going to be based on their billings. If it's managed services help desk type employees, it's going to be based on their on your MSP billings that they're responsible for. But so by virtually unlimited, I mean it's tied to that revenue, and as that revenue grows, then their bonus grows as well. It's financially significant. We'll talk about this more in detail in a few minutes, but it needs to be something that they're going to miss if it's not in their paycheck. And again, as we mentioned before, all the outcomes are aligned. What the company needs is aligned with what the client needs from the company, and the employee is focused on those exact same outcomes. And that's what makes that aligned bonus program a meaningful bonus program. By financially significant, we use a term we call an 80-30 compensation plan, and Jimmy's made use of this extensively in his company, so I'm going to let him talk a little bit about that.
So in our office, when we're interviewing a new technician, or we're working with, and we're talking right now mostly from a technician perspective, so we have different ratios for different roles inside the organization. So sales is different, et cetera. But from a tech perspective, we have what we call the 80-30 rule. So if a technician in your market is worth $50,000 a year, then their base compensation is set to $40,000. We then put a bonus plan in play that's obtainable by a handful of metrics, about 4 metrics, and we give them a position to be able to make an additional $15,000 a year in bonuses. So that actually puts them where they're over market, but if for whatever reason they're sitting on their hands or things don't work out, then the situation just kind of takes care of itself. We actually even use this 80-30 rule in our sales pitch to our managed services leads and opportunities, because we'll sit down with them, we'll explain the benefits of managed services. We talk to them about how the less we have to touch their computers, the more money we make. So it's our best interest to make sure that their systems run smooth, and then the more smoothly their machines work, then the more money they make because their people are able to focus on what they do. And so we talk about that, and then we go into the thing and say, well, you're probably thinking we're just going to neglect your stuff because the more we neglect it, the less we touched it, therefore we made the most money. And I actually get in on at the sales side, explaining our bonus plan to our leads and say, look, and I explain the 80-30 rule, and I let them know that a huge portion of their bonus is based off of a metric that is really tied to the success of the relationship with the client, and that they're driving almost 15% of someone's pay. And it's been a wonderful, it's just enough that the employees really enjoy it, and it's not, but it's just enough that they're really enjoying the extra money that they're allowed to be made. And it's also enough that they really pay attention and they mind this thing on a daily, weekly basis to keep their eye on it.
And as we said, because it's based on some sort of revenue number, it's virtually unlimited. So you model it around that 30%, but as the revenue grows, which it hopefully always is, then that bonus is growing as well. So we talked about performance metrics, and these KPIs, or key performance indicators, are critical to designing these bonus programs, planning what it is that we're going to base these on. And here's some examples of good KPIs to use on a bonus plan. Customer satisfaction score, CSAT score. So that's a measure of how happy your clients are with the work that you're doing. Mean time to resolution, or MTTR. So that's the average amount of time it takes to resolve a particular type of ticket. SLA compliance, that's how compliant your tickets are with whatever SLA you've promised to your clients. So the one that I recommend is time to until an engineer starts to work on a ticket. That's the SLA that I like to kind of promise clients. But whatever yours is, that's a great measure of certain types of tickets. Billable utilization for certain employees is a great measurement, especially time and materials type employees. And that's the percentage of time that they're billable to a client. The number of tickets worked may be important to certain types of employees. Labor-loaded gross margin, or LLGM percentage. So labor-loaded gross margin is an important financial metric to use in certain areas of your business, and that's the direct service-related compensation plus the direct service-related hard costs. So that might be, for managed services, that may be the cost of your RMM tools and the cost of your ConnectWise licenses, plus the salaries of your help desk employees, divided by the amount of revenues. And that gives us a labor-loaded gross margin percentage. And that's useful, especially with manager-type employees as a metric. Billable dollars is important in some instances with certain employees, and perhaps gross profit in other cases of a particular type of business. And we want these KPIs, when we design the bonus program, we want these KPIs to be what we call in balance or in tension. These three are great for a help desk type employee, and we'll get into that with more specifics here in a couple of slides. But when we talk about tension, what we want is a system where we don't want an employee to over-focus on one area where another area is going to suffer. And what I mean by that is, for example, mean time to resolution, or MTTR. If an employee is 100% focused on getting tickets closed in the shortest amount of time, chances are they're going to leave things out there that they're going to leave things undone. They're going to potentially not make sure that the problem's resolved. And if that happens, obviously the CSAT score will suffer because clients won't be happy. If they're putting tickets into in progress to keep them compliant on the SLA, but they're not actually working on the problem, hopefully the client is going to get an email from ConnectWise that says, hey, we've started working on your ticket, they're going to realize pretty quickly that you aren't really working on their ticket. And again, mean time to resolution is going to go up because the tickets are taking longer to resolve, and the customers aren't going to be as happy, so CSAT is going to suffer. So you can see how that idea of tension will help us to really make sure that we aren't causing one area of our service delivery to suffer. The other thing this helps with is the idea of gaming one particular score. So if we've got them in tension like this, it prevents an employee from kind of gaming, for example, mean time to resolution in order to kind of plump up his bonus in that area, because obviously the clients are not going to be happy if they do that. So let's talk about an example of a basic time and materials tech bonus plan. So this is somebody that's billable hours type tech. So we would base it on their billable dollars. In this example, they've billed $9,900. And we want to create a gateway. So they have to hit a specific billable utilization in order to get a bonus. We call that a gateway metric. So in this case, in this example, we're saying they've got to have at least 60, they have to be at least 60% billable. So this particular, in this particular example, they're 68.3% billable, so they are over that gateway, so they're going to get paid. And just as an example, we're going to pay out 7.5% of their billable dollars as their bonus. So in this particular example, the employee made $746 in bonus. So there's some good things and some bad things about this basic plan. One pro is it's very easy to calculate, right? It's a pretty straightforward calculation. It's also easy to understand. You know, you're going to get a percentage of your billable dollars if you have at least 60% of your time billable to clients. And it focuses on what probably is the #1 metric for a time and materials type employee, which is billable hours. But it also has some cons. The biggest one is it ignores the second most important metric for a billable employee, which is customer satisfaction. You know, blowing out billable hours is great for the bottom line, but if the clients aren't happy, it means you're going to have to potentially give credits. It means that clients may not come back and so forth. So we really need to take that into consideration. It's gameable for that same reason, so they can really push the billable hours to the detriment of the client satisfaction. And that makes it really focused on short-term outcomes. Short-term, you know, we get a lot of billable dollars. But long-term, we need our clients to keep coming back to us month after month and year after year for more projects and potentially managed services or other services. So we need them to be happy. So let's talk about a more complex bonus plan. And this is John. He's a time and materials tech. And this is an example up on the screen of someone who doesn't have any bonus plan. So let's just, in this example, say that his market rate, he's making $3,750 a month. And his billable utilization is pretty low at 53%, which means at $125 an hour, we are billing out $7,500. Let me get my little laser pointer here. And he's not very focused on customer satisfaction, so he's getting 12% of his clients are reporting an unfavorable experience. In this case, the company's gross profit is $3,750. So we're basically splitting the $7,500 between John and the company. And John, every month, makes that $3,750 no matter what happens with this gross profit, no matter what happens with these billable dollars, and no matter what happens with these clients, up until the time that we decide that we've got to fire John because he's not doing a good enough job. So instead, we move him onto a bonus plan. We focus him on, we lower his base salary to $3,000, and we give him a bonus, in this case of 5.9% of his billable dollars. And we make it contingent on a minimum billable utilization and having happy clients. So now he's focused on this stuff. Now he's brought his billable utilization up to 70%. That's given us $14,000 in billings at that same $125 an hour. He's made his clients much happier because he's really been focused on that. So he's only getting a 4% client dissatisfaction rating. He's got 96% of his clients happy. So now the gross profit for the company is $10,174. John has made a bonus of $826, which means that he's made slightly more than what he was making before on just the base pay. Now let's say John is knocking it out of the park. He's doing a phenomenal job. He's very focused on billable utilization. He's very focused on having happy clients. He's knocking it out of the park. Now he's at this 10% over market rate. He's made $1,125 in bonus, or $41,125 for the month. The company now has billed $19,000, which has brought the gross profit up to $12,000. So in this case, we've got alignment. We've got a happy client so that the needs of the client is met. We've got $12,000 in gross profit, which is great for the company, so the needs of the company is met. And John is making more money, so his needs are met as well. And you can see that focusing on the billings and focusing on the customer satisfaction, push that bonus up, and again, everybody's interests are aligned. Now let's talk about a basic help desk, managed services help desk bonus plan. So let's say that we've got $60,000 in monthly billings, and we're going to take a percentage of that and put it into what we call a team bonus pool. So in this example, we're putting 4.5% into that bonus pool. Let's say that we've got 3 engineers, each one working an equal amount of hours. So we're essentially going to take that $2,700 of bonus pool money and divide it into 3. So this person's going to make 1.5%. So we're going to pay out $900 to that bonus to that employee in bonus. So one of the things you'll notice here is probably the biggest benefit of this basic bonus plan is if we add a 4th person. So all of our techs are saying, hey, we're really, really busy. We can't get to everything. We add a 4th person. We're taking that pool and dividing it into 4ths instead of 3rds, which causes this bonus to go down. And that means that the employees are really focused on doing as much as they can with the resources that they have. But like the previous basic the previous basic time and materials bonus plan, it does have some flaws, and that is we don't have the performance metrics taken into account. So let's look at Mary. Mary, we've got, she's that help desk person, but we're going to put metrics into place. So we talked about these 3 metrics earlier, CSAT, MTTR, and SLA adherence. I recommend that we focus most heavily on CSAT, because if a client is happy and MTTR is suffering or SLA is suffering, we still have a happy client. That is our #1 priority. So 50% of our pie, that piece of those dollars that Mary is eligible for her bonus, are tied to these CSAT metrics. And in this case, they're okay, but they're not great. We want to see them at 99%. So at 95%, we're only going to give her half of that piece of the pie. So she's only getting $225 of a possible $450 for the CSAT metric. MTTR and SLA are both 25% of the pie. MTTR, we're at 10 hours, which we're saying in this example is okay. We really want to see it at lower than 2.5 hours. So in this case, where she's making $125 of a possible $250. And if she makes it down below this 2.5 hours, she's going to get another $125. And our SLA is not good at only 91% adherence. So in this case, we're not going to get anything. We're getting zero of the possible $250, and we want to get to 98% or greater, and that's going to put another $250 in her pocket. So it's showing her that $350 of a possible $950 is what she's projected at getting with the current set of metrics. Now, she becomes focused on those three metrics. And now she's brought her CSAT, MTTR, and SLA all up to the levels that we wanted to see them in. So now she's making the maximum in each one of those. So you can see how focusing her on these metrics and correlating that to dollars really puts a big carrot out there to improve these three metrics and really focus on the three most important things about help desk operations, which is happy clients, issues resolved in a reasonable amount of time, and getting to tickets in the amount of time that we promised our clients in our agreements. So in summary, a successful bonus plan it drives 2 to 4 key metrics. We don't want more than 4 because it gets too many, the employee becomes unable to focus because there are too many metrics out there. And we don't want to have usually more than or less than 2 because we want to have that idea of tension and in play. They're not easily gamed. It's offering a meaningful reward to the employee, and it yields above a market pay potential if they do the things well that we're asking them to do. It's based on revenue or gross profit that the employee is responsible for. So if they're in if they're in time and materials on the billable side of the house, it's based on billings. If they're in the managed services side, it's based on the managed services billings. If they do a little bit of both, then we're essentially dividing that up between the two. And it's aligning the interests of the employee, the company, and the client, and making sure everyone is focused on those same things. So to make all this easier, we've been developing this product called MySlice, and Jimmy's going to give you a quick demo of where we're at with that. So I think that might be interesting to you.
So for those that don't know, Dave and I submitted ConnectWise, had a competition about a year ago, almost a year ago this month actually, called, at the time they called it Tech Tank. They rebranded it calling it Pitch It. And so they said, hey, if anybody has a really good idea, it integrates in with ConnectWise, it pulls, does something that is meaningful, but you don't have the time to invest in it, or you don't want to put the money or time into it, throw us your ideas, and if you win, we'll give you money. And so, Dave, as I told you guys, Dave and I have been working together for about 5 years, refining our bonus plan into the multidimensional plan that we use today. And we spend almost 2 days a month calculating the bonus plan across our organization. And so it's very time consuming, it's very expensive, but it's also very valuable. So I will do it and continue to do it. But Dave and I were like, we need to pitch the idea of building a tool to automatically generate bonuses from real-time data from ConnectWise. So that's how MySlice was born. So with that said, I'm going to share my screen. It's actually not giving me the option to share my screen. Oh, there we go. All right. So everybody should be seeing my screen. Dave, Masha, is that working? Is it coming through?
Yep, I can see it.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Thank you. So what MySlice does is, and this is in almost beta kind of state, we have a plan builder where you have the ability to go in, and we've got all these metrics that Dave was talking about, billable services, billed services, CSAT, MTTR, gross profit, SLA, tickets worked, things along those lines. You can measure these metrics at the company level, at the individual team level. You can measure it at the team member level, and you can, of course, measure them at the individual users of the company level. And so in this example, we have a bonus plan that we put together that is 2% of customers of CSAT for the company, so total company CSAT, irregardless of the team that you're on. We're giving away 2%. If you are greater than or equal to 98%, you get 100% of the 2%. If it's greater than or equal to 96%, you get 75% of the 2%. And if it's greater than or equal to 94%, you get 50%. And as Dave said a minute ago, if it's less than 94, then you get 0. Here's an example of using billable MTTR for the company, but also giving billable MTTR for the team. And so you can do some really interesting things where you make sure that you're not only do you want to make sure that you have proper tension at the employee level, sometimes you can start putting tension inside of the individual circles. So the employees may, go against each other. And so there's some really great ways to keep the tension between the teams as well. So it's like, okay, we're going to grade everybody's CSAT together. So it causes everybody to pay attention, to give feedback, to help their teammates. But you can also give them a key bit of their bonus based off of their team's MTTR. So that being said, this example of a bonus plan is built. And I'm going to switch over to, so this would be the dashboard that a user, in this situation, Ben, would log in, and they get to see the various cards that correlate to the metrics that they are being measured on. They're going to be sorted based off of the date. So if it's in the current period, they're going to be at the top. Then those will be sorted by the highest value dollar. So they can see, okay, this is the most important thing for me to focus on. In this situation, this bonus, I've got more in the team MTTR than the CSAT. But so this person can see that they're making $462.63. This part one is $70. And so it's showing them that they're making, and this is real-time data. It's, computed, well, I'm going to say it's near time. It's, say, computed every 4 hours. So they're making $579.96 of a potential $1,066.06. And so since their organization MTTR is fine, they know that I really need to go drive this number to a lower number to pick up the other $231. I will show, this is an example of something that we're trying to figure out a little bit on the user interface, because we've rounded, technically their MTTR is like 1.4 and some change, and the goal is to get it below or equal to 1.5, and so we might start showing a second decimal here. The user can go in and pick longer time frames, so they can say, okay, well, I really want to see my bonus for the year. So this gives them, a bird's eye view of how they've done for the year. They can filter into a specific plan, because you may have a user that's in more than one plan. Maybe you've got a profit sharing plan. Maybe you've got maybe they're on their ticket team, that sort of thing. They can also filter by their KPIs. So it's like, well, show me all my CSAT metrics. And then, of course, if they're on more than one team, they can filter by team. And then finally, it's got the ability to focus on their paid. So this would show what their paid bonuses would be for a given time. So if they want to say, give me last year's bonus, then this person can see that their bonus was $11,463.20 out of $14,000. So with that being said, I say we open up questions, see if anybody has any questions. Go about it from there. I've never unmuted a room, so if it gets where it's hard to talk, we can unmute, or we can kind of let people raise their hands. But if anybody has any questions, we'd love to talk with you. I'm sure everybody's going to start talking at once.
Looks like two are still muted, right?
Well, they may have elected to keep it muted.
Oh.
I have a question. Does this work without the 80-30 concept?
Absolutely. I mean, you can set the amounts that you want. Obviously, the problem is, like I said, if you don't pay out enough money, it doesn't have the impact on the employee. Usually, the biggest challenge is getting from where you're at to a plan that has a significant bonus. Usually, what I recommend, and it's worked, every time I've done it, and that is you lower their base, but you guarantee them their old base. So if you report their bonus every month, but you guarantee them that old base for some number of months, and depending on how radical the change is, it might be 3 months, it might be 6 months, it might even be a year, but you're kind of giving them that ability to shift their gears, so to speak, and be focused on that. And by the time that time frame rolls around, they will be in that position and making hopefully more than what they were making before.
So, Dave, the question was asked about the ability to pay performance plans based on salespersons and managers. So absolutely, emphatically, yes. We're going to have a series of webinars around bonus plans, and the first one we did was based off of technicians. But because I do think that a lot of times a lot of MSPs or a lot of businesses focus on the bonus plan of the salespeople, and while it is extremely important, I think sometimes it gets overlooked to work with the technicians and really keep everybody's eye on the ball. There's a book called The Great Game of Business. I don't know if any of y'all have ever had a chance to read it, but it was put out by a group that turned around a company that it was a division of International Harvester, and they bought it up and turned it into an unbelievably profitable business. And it talks all the people in the system about bonus. But to answer your question directly for salespeople, yes, the system has been written to pull various metrics of all types. We've started with ConnectWise, but we will, of course, be able to pull other data pieces. We are working with them to enhance one of their commission report APIs, but to be honest, they're having a bit of a challenge with part of getting that data to us through their API, and so we are recalculating some of the sales metrics to be able to do that. But you can use billable, a whole bunch of the various metrics, and then you would have a sales team, or maybe you've got a person that's split between your sales team and your service team, and so that person may be able to be in both teams. I'd like to add one other part to that. The system allows you to, in one of the examples David showed you guys, he showed how that the pie was divided by 3 people, and then all of a sudden you had a 4th person, and now it's divided by 4 people. The system allows you to actually allocate a FTE calculation to a person. So if you did have a person that was split between your sales team and your tech team or your project team, you can put them 50% in each team, and when it does the allocation of the pie, the funds, it will actually distribute it based off of an FTE. Or if you had a team lead, you can make a team lead 150% of an FTE, and then everybody else 100. So, great question. Anybody else have any questions?
Yes, Jimmy, we received this question. What data sources are you able to pull KPIs from? This person uses ConnectWise, so they know that this is covered, but they use customer thermometer for example.
I'm sorry, Masha. What do they use?
Customer thermometer.
I'm not familiar with that one, but I mean, what our goal is to pull data from external systems across the board. One of the ones we're focused on is QBO, QuickBooks Online. That one should be reasonably simple. We'd really like to get BrightGauge data, although at this point they've got some API issues, so we can't get that. But any external system that has an API that we can pull from, we'd love to look at integrating with. Because this data, we don't really want to be in the business of calculating the metrics to use. We really would rather be in the business of taking those metrics and then dividing up the dollars and allocating them. And unfortunately, because we haven't been able to get like Bright Gauge data and ConnectSmart data at this point, we've had to do some calculations ourselves. Jimmy, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, no. As of today, though, the system pulls extensive of data out of ConnectWise, and then there is an organization that used to be called Next2 that's now called Smileback, which is, I'm looking at Customer Thermometer now. It's very similar to Customer Thermometer. And the difference, though, is that Smileback actually post their survey results back into ConnectWise as if you had used ConnectWise's survey system. And so we are pulling their data indirectly by pulling it from ConnectWise. So that's where we're currently, ConnectWise, and then indirectly Smileback, but ideally we will be adding many more. Can I ask how many of you guys use Bonus? I don't know if most of you want to do a show of hands because I know a lot of people don't want to speak up, but it'd be very interesting to know how many of you guys are currently using bonus plans, if you're using, you know, more of a traditional bonus plan, or what y'all's plans look like. Nope. I see a couple other, how much time, energy can an MSP expect to put into the management of these plans, both set up and monthly for the payroll? That's a great question. So we have, our plan is to have a collection of starter plans when you sign up, because we've worked very hard to refine and perfect what we've done in our business and what Dave's done with all of his other clients that he works with. And so you're right, there's definitely a little bit of time in getting it set up and configured. But once the plan is up and going, you are, the amount of time that it takes to keep them groomed, I think it's one of those things that you're going to want to look at maybe quarterly, maybe annually, just to make sure that the team is keeping things in balance. I will tell you, in our office, we do one other thing on our bonus plan. Dave was showing you guys the 50% CSAT, the 50% MTTR, and then, 25% MTTR and 25% SLA. We did add one more to ours. We split we left 50% CSAT, but then we took 25% and we call it dealer's choice. And so we look at things on a kind of a quarterly basis to see if the team has things they need to address. For example, we were having a really bad time that after hours that a technician would start working diligently on a ticket, but then they wouldn't go into ConnectWise and update it. And so we were getting missed events, or we were having issues where it would go up the SLA status and it would burn the SLA. And so we took 25% of their bonus and we tie it to what we call a manual measure, where we look at how many times something got escalated in a given month. And so the system does allow you to have what are called manual measures. So there's a little place that you can go and you can put in a value and say, okay, we had 6 missed events, or, you know, maybe you guys want to, how many postcards do you get from your clients? You got 3. And so there are manual values that can be done. And then, of course, we hope to start it off with a prepackaged set of plans that you guys go in and tweak your values and that sort of thing. Dave, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, I think you covered it pretty well. Somebody asked a question, but I can't see it.
So there's two other questions in here. One says, you know, what's the maximum number of metrics? There's no technical limit to the maximum, but there is 100%, I think, an attention span maximum. And I don't know, I think 4, Dave. Don't you think about 4 is really probably about the most?
Yep. If you get more than 4, your techs or you know, salespeople or, you know, administrative people, whoever it is, they're just trying to watch too many things, and I think it dilutes the impact. I think less is better.
And then the other part of one of these questions is how much time for payroll? So there's a screen that we didn't get into that runs a report. And so at the end, at the end of your period, whether it's a 2-week or whether it's a 1 month or whatever your frequency is that you set up your plans and you do your payroll, there's a report that it runs and it gives you everybody's names. We had talked about putting a CSV on to let people download the data and give it to their payroll company, and that may be something that we look at doing in the future. But for right now, it's a screen. You can print it off and then give those values to your payroll company.
Joe asked, can you build a plan and model it with past data to see what bonuses would look like across the company before publishing it to everyone? Yep, absolutely. We call that the simulation mode, and that's a pretty critical piece actually, because when I do this from a consulting standpoint, I spend quite a bit of energy looking at previous data and what these things would look like with different percentages, different allocations between the metrics and so forth. I mean, you don't. One of the things that you really want to avoid is rolling out a bonus plan that falls on its face because it didn't pay out what you thought it would or whatever, and not because they missed metrics, but because of whatever other reasons there might be.
Are y'all seeing the
running
screen? I'm sorry.
Yep. Well, he said, can we run it for a few months? Absolutely, and I do recommend that, by the way.
So, Joe, this is an example where we've actually, up here in the top, I changed this. I don't know if you guys were noticing, but when a person first logs onto their dashboard, it's not going to have a date selected, and it would be everything. It'd be everything that is either open or it's in processing. And so this is what they see by default. If you have turned one of the plans into what we call the simulation that Dave was talking about, and you mark it where your people can see it, they can actually come to this dashboard, or you can go to their dashboard and actually pick the simulated plans. And so here's 6 months worth of data that was computed as a simulation. So if you were like, man, what would it look like if I changed it from 2.5% to 2.75%? Or what would it look like if I added another metric and changed around the allocations? And so it will go back and run the data. There's some caveats here. The integration that we said that we're using with Smileback to post the number into ConnectWise, if that data is not in ConnectWise, you have to manually go into Smileback and configure it to post the data back into your ConnectWise. It does not back post the data. So if this type of integration with CSAT is something that you're interested in, and you are a Smileback customer, I would recommend that you go ahead and start flowing the data, because of course you can't run the simulation. Now what you could do is run the simulation and use a manual measured CSAT score, and then you could go back and cross-reference the Smileback dashboard and manually put in the values, and it would let you do the computations. Great question. I appreciate you bringing that up. I was aiming to show it and forgot to show that.
By the way, if you can let us know, whoever asked that question about the customer thermometer one, if you can let us know whether you can flow that data back into the survey tables, that would be useful. I did check into, I've got a couple clients that use SimpleSat, and I did look at that one, and that one cannot flow the data back into ConnectWise at this point. So I'd be interested in knowing which ones can and which ones can't.
Masha, I'm not seeing the questions anymore on my screen. I don't know if you want to read it or if you saw it, Dave, but Masha just said there's another question. Yeah. I'm not seeing them.
Yeah, I can read it. So this is another question from Joe. When did you say that this would be available for purchase and rough pricing? We have 39 employees, 28 plus are technical, some sales, some account management.
An awesome question, Joe. I wish I knew the answer. No, seriously, we are actually have a beta sign up on our website, and we are probably within, I would say, a month of allowing people to start working with. And to be completely transparent, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of handpick some people, and if they'll let us work with them and work with their data, then we hope to start picking some people to work with here within the next, few weeks. As far as the pricing is concerned, that is the one thing that we're trying to figure out. And it's like, earlier I told you guys that we charged $5 a PC and $20 a server for our managed services, and we thought we were killing it. And of course now we're nowhere near that. And so we are running models trying to figure out what number makes sense for this. We do think that it is going to be at a per user, per month price of somewhere between the $25 to $50, which I know sounds high. It is high, but the amount of time and energy that it takes to do this stuff manually is huge. So I know the savings is there, and then the amount of effort we've got in the computation and the programming is really high. The other thing, though, that I would recommend that you guys do is the fee to run this program really ought to be taken into consideration when you put your pie together. For example, if you knew that this plan was going to cost you $200 or $500 a month, and you knew that you were going to be giving away X percentage of your billable services, you were going to give away, 2%, then you could set it up to be 1.95%. And so we would recommend that you actually make that part of your cost that way. In time, if people find that structure of the cost to make sense, we will actually even just put it into the bonus plan calculations where you just say, run my numbers as if that expense is there. So it's kind of like a trading fee.
And Joe said that the customer thermometer writes back to ConnectWise, but not to the survey table. Yeah, that's what SimpleSat does, and that's what SmileBack does in its kind of basic format, where it's putting the results like in the notes of the tickets. And unfortunately, I mean, we could theoretically get at that data, but it's not it's not easily calculated. When it writes back to that survey table, we can actually pull out the score and then use that in our calculation.
Masha, am I missing any other questions? Are we missing any other questions?
No, I think that's it, but we do have a little update. Joe wrote customer thermometer also has webhooks, but we could switch to a different system.
Well, if it's got webhooks, we could probably hook to it.
Yeah, we can hook to it. I mean, and we'll look into it. We're very excited about extending this thing and adding to it. As Dave said, one of the things that we're really wanting to look into is, and this goes back to some of the managerial bonuses that was asked in the beginning. We would really like to get into some of the data inside of QuickBooks for your accounting packages and pull specific GL codes and that sort of thing. So we have every intention of opening it up. The manual measures that I told you guys about, they actually are exposed as an API endpoint. And so there is a way to use, although we've not fully baked it, and there's a couple things we need to do, but we've also thought about using Zapier, one of the systems that will move data around, and then you would just define it as if it was a manual measure, and then the system could go harvest from one of the third parties and then just write the value as if you had gone to the system yourself and typed in the value. So that's also going to be coming to allow flexibility. It's there. It's just not documented. And so, well, that's great. This has been a lot of fun. I hope everybody has found it useful and enjoyable. And I would really, really encourage you guys to look at bonus plans for the technicians if you're not currently doing it. It's just really done a lot to drive the overall employee satisfaction and the customers, and it's really great from a sales tool to our customers. So, Dave, any closing remarks you got?
Nope. Looks like I think we hit all of the questions. I was just scrolling through to make sure we got them all. So I'm glad that everybody had some time to spend with us today, and it was great having an opportunity to talk to you all.
And I'd like to add, if anybody wants to have some one-on-one conversations, if you see something, we would greatly honor the time. If anybody wants to talk, please, you can fill out the form on the website. There's a phone number on the website. We would love to talk with you. So if anybody has any questions, if anybody hasn't filled out the beta sign up and you're interested, please do such. So with that, Masha, is there anything else that we have on our to-do list?
No, that's it.
Well, thank everyone for your time very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.